We canceled a contract in New York educating transgender and queer farmers on food justice and food equality. I'm not even sure what that means, but apparently the last administration wanted to put our taxpayer dollars toward that. That's a quote from Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins, marking the first time I've ever quoted a Secretary of Agriculture. And it also marks the start of what might become a new series, This Week in Government Efficiency. Hey, everybody, I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott. This is Right Angle, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, I get these stories all the time, and I love sharing these because in addition to queer farmers and food equality or whatever, DOGE terminated, that's the Department of Government Efficiency, for those not in the know, they terminated a $1.5 million contract with the Department of Education's Institute of Education Sciences, IES, listed as funding to, quote, observe mailing and clerical operations at a mail center. See, this is where the deficit comes from, folks. $1.5 million so that some guy can watch other people stuff envelopes. Scott, I have a theory that I'd like to run past you and get your comment on. If you give the government just 1 cent more than it absolutely requires for the barest, most essential functions, it will spend it on some truly stupid stuff. And I clean that up for you.
I appreciate that. I mean, there's probably a grant out there somewhere where the government is paying some contractor literally to watch paint dry. The government owns a lot of buildings.
Stuff in envelopes.
That's right. So, and this is one of the reasons why the DOGE effort is much bigger than a money-saving effort. Because I'm going to put the best possible complexion on what these people did who issued these grants. If they have the people's money, they can't say no to the people. And so especially a group of people that they perceive to be put upon or hard-pressed or under duress in some way because they don't have some kind of rights that they should have in the eyes of the group itself and of the government officials. So the government guy who gets that application, he almost has to rubber stamp that. Like he can't say no to that because that would be then the mass of the people discriminating against a small group of the people. And what is the federal government but a way to keep the mass of the people from discriminating against a small group of the people? And that's really true. Like that's what Madison primarily was concerned about in his shepherding of the process of constitutionalism and ratification, was making sure that active minorities couldn't that weak minorities couldn't be crushed by the majority. Democracy, believe it or not, is the threat that the Constitution protects us against primarily. We think of the term in terms of the Revolution and the Declaration of Independence being a rejection of monarchy, and it was. But then the Constitution, in many ways, was a rejection of untrammeled will of the people governance. Because either method, monarchy or loose democracy, is tyranny. And this is, it sounds ridiculous to hear something like this described, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are many other projects that will sound just like this to us. And it has nothing to do, in this example, for what the actual content of that grant was. For all I know, this is an entirely virtuous purpose that these people have set out to accomplish with their queer farming. I have no idea what that is about. It's irrelevant to the point of it. The point is, if you give your money to the government, or if you allow the government to take your money from you, the government will then hand it out willy-nilly to anybody who appeals for it, as long as they meet basic minimum qualifications and can hire an attorney to do all the paperwork.
Yeah, and Scott, imagine being a gender-fluid farmer suffering under the oppression that no matter how many bananas you grow, they're all vaguely shaped like a penis. These people need our money, clearly. These cuts are brutal.
I am concerned about the irrigation problems of gender-fluid farmers.
Nicely played. All right, Bill, I want to tell you a story here. Back in 2016, the IRS realizes they needed to upgrade their computer systems that dated back to the 1990s. So they did a study, and in 2019, they received $8 billion for upgrades to be completed this year. They ended up spending 3 times that, about $35 billion, and never finished the upgrades. Now, some of that computer hardware is still 30 years old. But here's the kicker. I lied about the years. The program's deadline was actually in 1996. The money started flowing in 1989, and those legacy systems they still use are mainframes from the 1960s. If you can actually believe that. This is how the IRS functions, or I should say maybe doesn't function. And the IRS workers, Elon Musk was talking about this, they're actually the good guys in the story. They can't wait to get upgrades, right? They're stuck with these old systems. But also, according to Musk, consultants earn hundreds of millions of dollars. That's our money, keeping the old systems running. And nobody, not since Bill Clinton was president, can take away those iron rice bowls. Now, I want to tell you, or excuse me, let me rephrase that. I want you to tell me a story about how much we need DOGE when you hear stories like this.
I'd be happy to, and I just wish to devil that I had Sam Elliott here to tell it for you. Here's my story. There ain't no such thing as a queer farmer. Next question.
I've met a lot of farmers, and all of them seemed a little queer to me.
There's some odd farmers, but
that's what I'm saying.
There are no queer farmers by definition.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
What do you say about
then
this,
explain
Steve?
the rutabaga.
What do you say about this? Didn't we realize early in the beginning of the DOGE sterilization campaign that was it state or was it USAID or both where the records were kept in some underground vault in filing cabinets?
That's how they process government retirements.
Well. Yeah, that's right. That was a Social
on
Security
papers
thing,
in an
wasn't it?
underground salt
this is
mine.
where all the 130-year-old people live. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so I have to tell you, I'm a little on mixed feelings about this because clearly using filing cabinets in 2025 is a way to obfuscate the fact that you're stealing people's money, right? I mean, that's clearly what that's for. And at the same time, the last thing I want to do is make the government more efficient at taking our money, and tracking down all of this. But I completely agree with Scott. This is, and I have seen very, very few mistakes made by the Trump administration. I wouldn't even call this a mistake. I would call this a low-hanging fruit, missed opportunity. This is not a financial crusade. This is a moral crusade. Yeah. This is a moral issue. People are taking your money at gunpoint, and they are wasting it on stuff that does not serve the common good, does not serve your interests. It does not help the United States of America, and they benefit from it. It is graft, it is crime, and it is fraud. And to make this about the money that we're saving is great, but to ignore the criminal and immoral aspect of it is to lose the kind of momentum you need to make this thing keep going. This needs to be a moral crusade, and it's going to be another one of those 80-20 issues. There's going to be Democrats and people who are there. There are a significant number of people who are on the receiving end of this graft. And they are not only going to be fighting tooth and nail. When you see what they're doing to Tesla dealerships, they understand this is their livelihoods on the line. They are up against the wall now. And if you don't have a moral banner to carry, if all you're talking about is, hey, think of the money that we're going to be saving, that's great and everything. But this needs to be it really needs to be a crusade, Steve. Flags to the horizon, armies in shining armor with their swords held glinting in the sunlight, coming to clean Mordor out. And when you hear things like this, we've been hearing things like this for 8 weeks now or longer. And the novelty of hearing about outrageous things that we're paying for is starting to wear off. So we shouldn't be dependent on the novelty. Oh, they're paying for queer farmers now, or no. It's like, no, here's another case where every dime that you and everybody you ever know ever paid in taxes for your entire life or ever will pay in your entire taxes has been absolutely wasted. And that extension you wanted to build on the house, or your kid's college money, or that vacation you didn't take, or the pool you didn't get, or the debt you didn't pay down, all of that money was stolen from you at gunpoint by the government, and not to build roads or air traffic control systems or aircraft carriers, but to fund nonsense projects that are there specifically so that the people who inhabit the political body, in the same way that tapeworms inhabit the physical body, are able to feed on you, and it's time to bring this to an end.
And Steve, can I throw something else in here too? Because
Please.
This isn't just about the government taking your money and spending it on things that you wouldn't have spent your money on. I mean, if the Queer Farmers set up a Kiva account and asked for financing, like some poor people in other countries do, and get loans and pay them back from their own industry, that'd be one thing. This you have no choice in. The government is distributing funds in ways you didn't even anticipate. But there's a larger issue when it comes to economics, and that is the misallocation of resources in the economy. In other words, when you have a handful of people who have mixed motivations that aren't purely for the benefit of customers, because they're political animals primarily, they misallocate resources that would have otherwise flowed to the most promising technologies, to the areas of the economy where investors are willing to take a risk on something because they see a concomitant value coming back to society or to themselves in return. And so if we give $1 million to one of these nonprofit organizations because the government thinks that they should have that $1 million, that's $1 million of lost investment into other areas of the economy that would have been much more suitable for that. And you say, well, these poor people wouldn't be able to get funding otherwise. Probably not. And there's a good reason for that. It's if a great donut shop opens in your neighborhood, guess what happens? A line forms at the door. If a stale donut shop opens in your neighborhood, guess what happens? No line. And that's how that one dies and the first one thrives. And if we let government agents misallocate those resources, we will miss opportunities to put money into the places where the market forces would have had them go. And market forces simply means what people want, when they want it, and where they want it.
Yeah, for all the talk about democracy, a free market is a democracy. People vote with their wallets and pick winners and losers based on what we want, what we like. And it's not gay rutabagas, I guarantee you. Bill and Scott said pretty much everything I could want to say about this. So I'll just add one last thing, and that is there is $1 trillion on the line this year alone. That's what they aim to cut in this year, and that's $1 trillion, not just this year, but every year going forward. That isn't going to go to some people who are going to be very, very angry about losing that money, and people get murdered for a lot less than $1 trillion. So, yeah, that's where we are. This is going to get worse before it gets better, but I hope it gets better. And that's your right angle on that, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.